Today you have to start with the standard form of the quadratic equation. Like the linear form of the linear equation, the standard form of the quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. This is the standard form of the quadratic equation, and the standard form of the linear equation is ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. This is the standard form of the linear equation, and ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0 is the standard form of the quadratic equation. Here in the linear equation holds the two variables and c is the constant term, but here though this expression holds the three term that contain only one variable, x as the variable, and this contain this a is the coefficient of this x square, this b is the coefficient of this x, and c is the constant term, and I will say that ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0 is the standard form of the quadratic equation, where a, b, c are real numbers. What are the conditions that you have to try to understand? Where a, b, c are real numbers and a is not equal to 0. You have to keep in your mind that if b is equal to 0, no problem at all. You have to say that this is the quadratic equation. If c is equal to 0, then also you have to say that this is the quadratic equation. If b and c both are equal to 0, then also you have to say that this is the quadratic equation. But if a is equal to 0, at that time you have to say that this is not the quadratic equation, because this term becomes 0, and if this term becomes 0, at that time this is the linear form of the equation. So you have to say that the standard form of the quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, c are the real numbers and a is not equal to 0. Only a is not equal to 0 is the condition. Then this quadratic equation, the equation involving one variable and having the 2 as a maximum index, that is the degree of the variable is 2, is called as the quadratic equation. If you will observe this expression, at that time the highest index of this expression is 2, because highest index is 2. Here index is 2, here index is 1, this is the constant term, index is 0. Highest index of this expression is 2. So degree of this expression is 2. So you have to say that this is the quadratic equation, where a, b, c are the real number and a is not equal to 0. This is the condition. So x square plus bx plus c is 0 is also called as a general form of the quadratic equation. This is the standard form of the quadratic equation, or you will say that this is the general form of the quadratic equation. Then friends, you have to see some conditions. In equation ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0 is the quadratic equation in one variable. Here highest index of the variable is 2. So degree of this expression is 2. So this is the quadratic equation. But if b is equal to 0, what conditions are given that you have to say? First of all, you have to see that if b is equal to 0, at that time, if b is equal to 0 means this term becomes 0. At that time, what remain? Only x square plus c is remain. So if b is equal to 0, equation become x square plus c is equal to 0. This is also called as the quadratic equation, because highest index of the variable is 2. Degree of this expression is 2. So you have to say that this x square plus c is equal to 0 is the quadratic equation. For example, 2x square plus 7 is also called as a quadratic equation. Then you have to say that if first of all we saw that if b is equal to 0, that time whatever be the remaining expression, that one is the quadratic expression or not. In the same manner, if c is equal to 0, if c is equal to 0, at that time expression becomes x square plus bx. Then x square plus bx is equal to also 0. This is also called as the quadratic equation. Here highest index of the variable is 2. Degree of this expression is also 2. So you have to say that this quadratic equation, this x square plus bx is equal to also the quadratic equation. Then third condition, when b is equal to 0 and c is equal to 0, first of all we saw that b is equal to 0, that time that one is quadratic equation or not. C is equal to 0, that time that one is quadratic equation or not. And you have to observe that when b and c both are equal to 0, that time if b is equal to 0, c is equal to 0, at that time what is remain? X square is equal to 0. At that time you have to say that this x square is equal to 0, called as a quadratic equation. For example, 3x square is equal to 0. If a is equal to 0, next condition is that if a is equal to 0, that time this is the quadratic equation or not. Then bx plus c, if a is equal to 0 at that time, if this term is 0, that time bx plus c is equal to 0 is the quadratic equation or not. That time you have to say that the highest index of the variable is 1. This is the linear equation. This is not the quadratic equation. The degree of this expression is 1. The degree of this expression is not 2. So you have to say that this is not the quadratic equation. You understand all these things? So you have to write all these things in the notebook.